China and Indonesia have urged developing countries to stand in solidarity to stop the war in Ukraine. The foreign ministers of both countries made the call on the sidelines of the G20 meeting in Bali. They also urged a reintegration of Russia and Ukraine food exports into the global supply chain. Now, tensions over the Russia-Ukraine conflict are already being felt, as it's expected to dominate the meeting of the world's major economies.
If you ever wanted an example of a nation which has chosen to denigrate and weaken multilateralism, if you ever want an example of a nation which has demonstrated its willingness, its disregard for the need for food security for a world recovering from a pandemic, it is Russia, and it is Russia in its persistent refusal to comply with the UN Charter and international law, and its illegal, immoral invasion of Ukraine.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will have his first face-to-face meetings with some of his country's fiercest critics. The group of 20 includes Western countries that have accused Moscow of war crimes and stoking a global food crisis by blocking grain shipments out of Ukraine. But the group also includes countries like China, Indonesia, India and South Africa that have been more muted in their response. Well, Saiful Bahri Ismail joins us live now for Jakarta for more on this. Saiful, Indonesia is more than just a summit organizer this year. It's also got to bridge this significant divide over Russia. Give us a sense of how challenging that's going to be.
Well, Dawn, Indonesia, as the current chairman of the G20, is keen to bring everyone to the G20 table, and it has been challenging for Jakarta to do just that. Indonesia does not want the war in Ukraine to overshadow or become a point of distraction from its G20 agenda. Now, the G20 has always been about the global economy, but politics always stands in the way. President Joko Widodo recently embarked on an ambitious peace-building mission to Kiev and Moscow after attending the G7 meeting in Germany. Mr. Widodo met with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Widodo invited both leaders to attend the G20 summit later this year. He also tried to convince Russia to end a blockade on grain exports that's driving a global food crisis, and offered up Indonesia as a diplomatic bridge between the two warring nations. Now, this showed that Indonesia means business in trying to bring about a resolution to the Ukraine war, even though there has been skepticism on how effective Mr. Widodo's peace mission had been. Clearly, Mr. Putin has no intention of ending the war anytime soon. Ukraine is still being attacked after Mr. Widodo's visit. However, his mission was seen as a goodwill effort, and this has been reciprocated by Prime Minister Boris Johnson, and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau have urged other G7 countries not to boycott the Bali summit.
Well, Saiful, there are some key and pressing issues at the heart of this summit. What can we expect tomorrow?
Well, Dawn, firstly, the war between Russia and Ukraine is expected to feature heavily during the G20 foreign ministers meeting. The gathering will be the first time that foreign ministers from some of the world's top economies will meet Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov since Russia invaded Ukraine in February. The G20 Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting is also seen as a good opportunity to drive the food security agenda forward. All the G20 countries are expected to agree on initiatives to address a global food insecurity and energy volatility triggered by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. However, there are also concerns that the event could still be disrupted, much like the meeting of G20 central bank governors and finance ministers earlier this year, which saw members of Western states walk out in protest. Observers said it's important for Indonesia to show effective diplomacy, such as dealing with the possibility of a walkout when the Russian minister issues statements. However, analysts said Western leaders may have decided that ceding the floor to Russia would be counterproductive. Now, if they don't show up, then the Russians have the floor and will make their arguments unopposed.
There may well be some fireworks ahead. Saiful, thank you very much for that. Saiful Bahri Ismail reporting for us there from Jakarta.